The sun hung low over Lake Evergreen, casting a golden shimmer on the water that made our little gated community feel like a slice of paradise. But paradise has its serpents, and mine went by the name of Karen Hargrove, was the self-appointed Queen of the Homeowners Association. A woman in her mid-50s with a perm that screamed, "I want to speak to your manager," and a clipboard that might as well have been a scepter. I'd lived in Evergreen Shores for 5 years, minding my own business, until that fateful Saturday when she decided my dock was her next conquest. Little did she know, by the end of the hour, I'd turned the tables so hard she'd be begging for mercy from her own boat. It all started with a splash. I was out on my dock early that morning, coffee in hand, watching the mist rise off the lake. My property backed right up to the water, and the dock was my pride and joy, a sturdy wooden platform I'd built myself, complete with a small boathouse and a slip for my modest fishing boat. The HOA rules were clear. Docks were private property as long as they didn't encroach on communal areas. Mine didn't. But Karen had other ideas. She marched down the shared path like a storm cloud in khakis, her sensible loafers clacking against the gravel. "Mr. Ellis," she barked, waving a sheaf of papers. "We need to talk about this. Eyesore." I set my mug down, already sensing trouble. "Morning, Karen. What's the problem?" Her eyes narrowed behind her bifocals. "The problem is your dock. In violation of Section 4.2 of the bylaws, unauthorized extension into the lakefront reserve." I laughed, thinking it was a joke.
Karen, I've had this dock since I moved in."
"It's grandfathered in. You approved the plans yourself." She thrust the papers at me. That was under the old board. "I'm the president now, and I've reviewed the surveys. Your dock juts out 2 feet farther than allowed. It's a hazard. 24 hours to remove it, or we'll evict you from it. Fines, liens, the works." Evict me from my own dock? On my own property? Felt my blood pressure spike. This is ridiculous. "Show me the survey." She smirked. "I don't have to show you anything. The board voted last night, unanimous." The board was her and her cronies, 3 other busybodies who rubber-stamped whatever she said. I glanced at the lake, where her gleaming speedboat bobbed at her dock next door. It was twice the size of mine, with Hargrove's pride emblazoned on the side in gold letters. She'd bragged about it at every HOA meeting, how it was custom-built and worth a fortune. "Fine," I said, forcing a smile. "I'll look into it." But as she turned to leave, triumph in her step, something snapped. I dealt with her petty tyrannies. Before fining me for my grass being a shade too long, complaining about my barbecue smoke. This was war. I had an ace up my sleeve. My day job as a maritime lawyer. Yeah, that's right. While Karen played HOA dictator, I specialized in admiralty. Law, dealing with boats, docks, and everything watery. Time to seize the day literally. I retreated to my home office, firing up my laptop. First things first, pull up the property records. Evergreen Shores was built on what used to be a larger estate, subdivided in the 80s. The lakefront was tricky, because parts of it fell under federal navigation servitudes, meaning the water itself wasn't fully private. Docks, they had to comply with Corps of Engineers permits. A quick search through my files confirmed what I suspected. My dock was fine, but hers? I'd noticed something off about her boat slip last summer. It extended into a shallow area marked as a protected wetland on the original plats. She'd probably bullied the old board into ignoring it. I dialed my buddy at the county clerk's office. "Hey, Mike, need a favor? Pull the wetland delineations for Evergreen Shores, Lot 12 Hargroves Place." 10 minutes later, he emailed me the scans. Bingo. Her dock and boat slip encroached on federally protected land. No permit on file. That meant her boat was technically moored in violation of environmental laws. And under maritime law, vessels in illegal moorings could be subject to seizure by affected parties or authorities. But I wasn't calling the feds. Not yet. This was personal. I grabbed my keys and headed to the marina down the road, where I kept a few tools of the trade: tow lines, a portable winch, and my inflatable dinghy. The plan was forming Caesar boat under a citizen's maritime lien for the encroachment affecting my property. It was a stretch, but with the right paperwork. I could make it stick long enough to teach her a lesson. Back at the lake, I paddled out quietly in my dinghy, approaching her boat from the water side. The lake was calm, no one around except a few ducks. Her speedboat was unlocked tarragons at its finest. I attached the tow line to the bow cleat, then motored back to my dock, winching it slowly across the water. It took about 15 minutes, but soon Hargrove's pride was nestled in my slip. Right where my fishing boat had been, I secured it, then snapped photos from every angle. Next, I drafted a quick notice of seizure on my phone, citing the wetland violation, and my right as an adjacent property owner to mitigate the hazard. I printed it at home and taped it to her dock post. By the time I finished, my phone buzzed. It was Karen. "What the hell have you done with my boat, you thief?" I leaned against my railing, watching her storm down her path. "Seized it, Karen. Legally, your dock's in violation wetlands encroachment. No permit. That makes your mooring illegal, and since it affects the shared water line, I've exercised my right to remove the hazard." She gaped at me from across the fence, her face turning beet red. "You can't do that. That's my property." "Actually, I can." Check the notice. "You've got 24 hours to prove compliance, or I'll file for permanent forfeiture." She sputtered, pulling out her phone. "I'm calling the police." "Go ahead," I said calmly. "But you might want to call your lawyer first." The cops arrived 20 minutes later, two officers I'd seen at community events. Karen was in full meltdown mode, pointing and yelling. I handed them my documents, the wetland maps, the seizure notice, even a copy of the relevant statutes. Officer Ramirez skimmed them. "This looks ... complicated. Maritime stuff." I nodded. "Admiralty law." Her boat was illegally moored, posing an environmental risk. "I seized it to prevent further damage," Karen interrupted. "He's lying. He stole it." The officers exchanged glances. "Ma'am, this seems civil. You'll need to sort it in court." "But Mr. Ellis, you can't just take someone's boat." "Actually, under 46 U.S.C. Section 313, I can initiate a seizure for violations affecting navigation or environment." I replied, bluffing a bit on the specifics, but knowing it would hold for now. They left, advising us to lawyer up. Karen glared daggers at me. "This isn't over, Ellis. The board will crucify you." I smiled. Bring it on. The rest of the day was a whirlwind. Word spread through the neighborhood like wildfire, texts, group chats, even a few neighbors peeking over fences. By evening, the HOA emergency meeting was called, right in Karen's living room. I showed up uninvited, documents in hand. The bored Karen, her husband Bob, a meek accountant, Mrs. Patel from down the street, and old Mr. Wilkins sat stiffly as I laid out my case. Not only is my dock compliant, but Karen's isn't. "Here's the evidence. If you evict me, I'll sue the HOA for selective enforcement." Karen slammed her fist. "This is retaliation. It's a menace." Mrs. Patel cleared her throat. "Karen, these maps, they do show an issue with your dock." The room fell silent. Bob shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Wilkins, who'd always hated Karen's bossiness, chuckled. Well, hoist by your own petard." Karen's face crumpled. "Fine. Withdraw the eviction notice. But give me back my boat. Not until you fix your dock," I said. "Permits, inspections, the works." She stormed out, defeated. But I wasn't done. That night, I took her boat for a spin legally, since it was in my possession. The engine purred like a dream, slicing through the water under the stars. It felt like justice. The next morning, contractors arrived at her place, tearing up her dock extension. By noon, she'd complied. I returned the boat, but not before adding a little touch. A bumper sticker on the stern reading, "Play nice or pay the price." Karen avoided me after that. The HOA meetings became more democratic, and my dock, untouched. Sometimes paradise needs a little rebellion to stay sweet. Word count, 1,248. Wait, that's short. Let me expand this properly to hit around 2,150. I need to flesh this out more. Let's add backstory, more dialogue, subplots, rewinding a bit. My name's Jack Ellis, 42, divorced, no kids. I moved to Evergreen Shores after my ex took the house in the city. The lake was my escape fishing at dawn, kayaking at dusk. The community was small, 50 homes, all with that full rustic charm. The HOA was a beast, and Karen was its head. She'd been president for 2 years, elected on promises of maintaining standards. In reality, it was her way or the highway. She'd find the Johnsons for their kids' lemonade stand, harass the Garcias over their holiday lights. Me, I'd flown under the radar until now. That morning, as she confronted me, I remembered the first time we'd clashed. It was at a barbecue last summer. I'd grilled burgers and smoke wafted her way. She marched over, citing fire codes. One spark and the whole neighborhood burns. I'd apologized then, not today. After she left, I dove deeper into research. I called my law partner, Sarah. Hey, got an HOA nightmare. Okay, you pull federal wetland regs for Lake Evergreen? She laughed. Personal or professional? Both. She sent over PDFs. The Corps of Engineers had designated parts of the lake as Section 404 wetlands protected under the Clean Water Act. Any structure required a permit. Mine had one, issued in 1985. Hers. Nothing since her addition 3 years ago. I cross-referenced with satellite images. Her dock extension was clear as day, pushing into reed beds where egrets nested. Plans solidified. I prepped the dinghy. As I paddled out, a neighbor, Tom, from across the street, waved from his porch. "What you up to, Jack?" "Just some maintenance," I yelled back. Attaching the tow was tricky, the boat was heavy, but my winch did the job. The sweat beaded on my forehead as I hauled it over. Once secured, I admired my handiwork. Her boat looked ridiculous in my slip, like a peacock in a chicken coop. The notice I drafted was a masterpiece. Notice of maritime seizure pursuant to 33 CFR Section 328 and related statutes. Vessel Hargrove's Pride seized for illegal mooring in protected wetlands, causing potential harm to adjacent properties. Owner must provide proof of compliance within 24 hours or face forfeiture proceedings. Taping it up felt cathartic. Her call came as expected. The rage in her voice was music. When the cops showed, I stayed cool. Officer Ramirez, a fishing enthusiast, recognized me from the lake. "Jack, this true?" "Every word. Here's the law." I showed them printouts. His partner, Officer Lee, sighed. "Ma'am, he's got paperwork. We can't arrest him without a warrant."
Karen
fumed. "This is theft." "Civil matter," Ramirez said. "Take it to court." As they drove off, Karen turned to me. "You'll regret this, Ellis. My brother's a judge." "Good," I said. "You can explain why you broke federal law." The neighborhood buzz exploded. My phone lit up with texts. "You legend." From Tom. "About time." Someone stood up from Mrs. Patel. The meeting that evening was tense. Karen's living room smelled of potpourri and desperation. Bob offered coffee. I declined. I presented like in court. Slides on my tablet. Maps, regs, photos. Karen's dock violates federal law, I concluded. Evicting me while ignoring this is discrimination. I'll file with the DOJ if needed. Whispers rippled. Mr. Wilkins spoke up. "I've got photos of her extension from last year." "No permit meeting," Karen exploded. "Traitor." But the vote was 3-1. To rescind my eviction. She abstained, fuming. Returning the boat the next day, I found her waiting. "You win this round," she muttered. "Wasn't a game," I said. "Just rules." She quit the HOA a month later. The community thrived without her iron. Fist? And me? I enjoyed my dock in peace, with a new story to tell at barbecues. Still short? Let's add more depth, expanding on backstory. Before the divorce, my life was corporate drudgery. The lake was rebirth. Karen reminded me of my ex-controlling, never wrong. During the seizure tension, what if she caught me? Heart pounding as the winch groaned. After subplot, other neighbors share stories. Tom reveals Karen fined him for his dog's bark. Mrs. Patel on her garden gnomes. At the meeting, more debate. Karen tries to rally, but fails. Post-resolution, I host a lake party. Boat rides on my fishing rig. Karen watches from afar, ad descriptions, the lake scent, bird calls, oats, leather seats, dialogue extensions now. Aiming for 2-150. Full story. The sun hung low over Lake Evergreen, casting a golden shimmer on the water that made our little gated community feel like a slice of paradise. But paradise has its serpents, and mine went by the name of Karen Hargrove. She was the self-appointed queen of the Homeowners Association. A woman in her mid-50s with a perm that screamed, "I want to speak to your manager," and a clipboard that might as well have been a scepter. I'd lived in Evergreen Shores for 5 years, minding my own business, until that fateful Saturday when she decided my dock was her next conquest. Little did she know, by the end of the hour, I'd turn the tables so hard she'd be begging for mercy from her own boat. My name is Jack Ellis. I'm not the kind of guy who seeks trouble. After my divorce from Lisa, who took the house, the dog, and half my savings, I bought this lakeside property to start fresh. The dock was the selling point, a 30-foot extension into the lake. Perfect for fishing or just sitting with a beer watching the sunset. I'd spent weekends staining the wood, installing lights, even adding a small lift for my 18-foot bass boat. It was my sanctuary. Karen, on the other hand, was the neighborhood's nightmare. She and Bob had moved in a decade ago, and she'd climbed the HOA ladder by nitpicking everyone else's life. Her house was immaculate, her lawn manicured to within. An inch of its life? And her boat? A 35-foot speedboat with all the bells and whistles, jet drives, stereo system, even a mini-fridge. She used it to patrol the lake, yelling at kids for swimming too close to her side. That morning, I was out on the dock in my shorts and t-shirt, sipping black coffee from my thermos. The water lapped gently, and a heron stood statue-like in the shallows, peaceful. Then I heard the clip-clop of her loafers. "Mr. Ellis," she called, her voice piercing the tranquility like a siren. I turned, feigning surprise. "Karen, early for you, isn't it?" She held up her clipboard like a shield. "Not when there's a violation to address. Your dock is in breach of HOA bylaws." I set my coffee down. "Come again?" Section 4.2. No structure shall extend more than 25 feet into the lake without board approval. Yours is 30 feet. It's a safety hazard and an eyesore. I crossed my arms. "Karen, this dock was here when I bought the place. It's grandfathered, you know that. The old board may have overlooked it, but I'm enforcing the rules now. The board met last night. You have 24 hours to dismantle the excess or face eviction from the dock area, plus fines up to $5,000. Eviction from my own dock?" The audacity hit me like a wave. This is my property. Can't evict me from it. Can restrict access if it's non-compliant. Read the covenants. She handed me a printed notice, her lips curled in satisfaction. I scanned it, full of legalese. But I knew better. As a maritime lawyer, I'd seen worse. "All right, Karen, I'll review this." "Good, and don't think about ignoring it." Ways. She turned on her heel, marching back to her house. Rage bubbled up. This wasn't about the dock. It was about control. Last month, I'd opposed her proposal for mandatory lawn ornaments at the HOA meeting. This was payback. I went inside, booting up my computer. First, confirm my dock's status. The property deed showed the dock as part of the original lot, permitted in 1984. No violations then. Her dock. I'd always suspected something. Using Google Earth, I overlaid wetland maps from the Army Corps of Engineers. Her extension, added 3 years ago, jutted into a designated wetland area, reads, "Marsh grass, protected under the Clean Water Act. No permit filed in the county records. Jackpot. Illegal structures. On federal waters could lead to fines, removal. And for moored vessels, seizure if they posed an ongoing threat. But how to seize it? As an adjacent owner, I could claim a nuisance lien and remove the hazard myself, pending court review. It was risky, but doable. I called Sarah, my partner. "Sarah, need advice on a personal matter? Can the first seize a boat for wetland violation?" Paused. "Theoretically, yes, under Admiralty rules. Document everything." "Why?" "Long story, thanks." "Next. Gear up." drove to the marina, grabbing heavy tow ropes and a battery-powered winch. Back home, I inflated my dinghy and paddled out stealthily. The lake was empty, most neighbors at work or errands. Her boat bobbed invitingly. I tied off, attached the tow to the bow, then paddled back, hooking the winch to my dock piling. Cranking, the boat glided across the 50 yards separating our slips. It took 20 minutes, my arms aching, but it worked. Once secured, I photographed it and wrote the seizure notice, citing statutes, and posted it on her dock. My heart raced as I waited. 5 minutes later, her scream echoed. "My boat, Ellis, you bastard." She ran to the fence. "What have you done?" "Seized it," I said calmly. "Your dock's a legal wetland violation. No permit." The boat was moored unlawfully, affecting the ecosystem and my property line. "This is a citizen's seizure to mitigate." "You're insane. I'm calling the cops." "Do it." The police arrived quickly, I explained, showing docs. They were skeptical, but admitted it was civil. Karen was livid. "Arrest him." "Can't, ma'am." "Get a lawyer." After they left, she threatened lawsuits. I shrugged. "See you in court." The neighborhood reacted. Tom called, "Dude, epic. She's been after my garage for months." Mrs. Patel texted, "Thank you. Her rules are suffocating." The HOA meeting was packed. 15 neighbors crammed in Karen's living room. I presented evidence, answering questions. Karen defended, "This is personal. He's retaliating." "But is your dock legal?" Mr. Wilkins asked. She stammered. The vote went against her. She fixed her dock the next week. Contractors grumbling. I returned the boat, clean and polished. Karen resigned, moving to Florida 6 months later. The HOA reformed and I became vice president, ensuring fairness. My dock remains a symbol of standing up. At every sunset, I toast to that hour of sweet revenge.